Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Sinikka Waugh with the Even Better podcast, and this is part of our ongoing commitment to help everyone have better work days. And when our work days are better, we can co-create better communities. So thank you for joining us for the Even Better podcast. I am so excited to be here with Amanda Zwanziger. I have met her over the last few months and am just delighted with her energy and her positivity and the message that she has to share. Amanda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is so fun. So for those of you who don't know Amanda, the things that I know most about Amanda, I know, for example, that we live in the same town and that we've got kids about the same age and that we have some really great mutual friends. But for those who are listening that might not know that about us, let me share some other things about Amanda. So Amanda has been able to balance her career and her parenting and the joys of her life, as well as a full-time ministry and a business. So she is this amazing, one of these people that does it all, and so delighted to have her here. She's going to help share some of the things that have gotten her through her journey. Her ministry is the Paralysis movement, and her business is Righthand LLC. She's a consultant, she's a coach, she's a speaker, she's a writer, and like so many of the folks that we at Your Clear Next Step bring into the fold and into the conversation, she is really about helping businesses. And in particular, she helps businesses and people overcome the paralysis they're facing. This is a really interesting way of putting it, Amanda. You help people overcome the paralysis they're facing. That's a really significant word. Is there a story behind that?
There is. So it's pretty interesting. I think we all have stories of paralysis, but it's not necessarily something that is always, light shining on it. And unfortunately, we had one of those tragedies come into our lives that shed light on paralysis. The moment that it happened was a tragedy, but really what we've learned from that tragedy really changed things. So my husband, we were actually engaged at the time, was in a four-wheeler accident and broke his neck, suffered a spinal cord injury, and he was fully paralyzed on the right side of his body. And so we were a family that had to go through one of those really difficult journeys of somebody losing their ability to move. But we learned so much from that process. One, we had a miracle intercede. So we were one of those people who thought, it might be impossible for him to ever walk again. And we were quickly proven wrong. And when I say quickly, he had no movement after day 4. He had a moment of faith that he had never had before. And 6 days later, he was walking down the hallway, dancing a little jig in the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
And it was absolutely it is the biggest life-changing moment that I think either of us have ever had in our lives. And we certainly learned a lot from the process of people who overcome such a difficult journey. But it wasn't until about a year later when I was really unsettled in my career and was honestly just lost and thought I needed to start a business. I didn't know what it was that I should be doing, but I knew it was something different. And I started getting something settled on my heart, which blew me away because I'm not exactly the ministry type. Most people who know my story, I'm just a regular old girl. I like to drink beer and whatnot. And so when it started being placed in my heart to start this ministry to help people, I honestly didn't know what it meant until I started looking at my own life and looking at the paralysis that I had for a long time in my life and looking at the paralysis that I had at that very moment, that paralysis of feeling that I needed to be who I'd always been and not necessarily pay attention to who maybe I was shaping up to be.
Wow. That word paralysis we use in the project management and the business analysis discipline a lot. Well, here in technology projects or in the IT space and sometimes in business with decision making, you'll hear people talk about analysis paralysis, right? There's I'm analyzing something to death. I'm looking at all the possible angles and not taking action. And then you bring the story of a real, life-changing, a moment where someone was dealing with the physical reality of paralysis and then how they were able to overcome that. It's really, this is challenging my heart, and I imagine it's challenging our listeners as well as we think about that word. It's not to be taken lightly. This is something that can prevent us from moving forward And you've got 4 focus areas. So that's the topic of today's session, is 4 focus areas for overcoming paralysis. And that sounds like a hopeful message, right? That sounds like you can do it. So 4 focus areas for overcoming paralysis in our lives. I can't wait to hear these. Okay, so the first one, you described it to me as reflect on paralysis. So take us through that. What does that mean to reflect on paralysis? What are we looking at? What are we reflecting on? Help us out.
Yep. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in our lives is looking at those things that have us stuck. I mean, it honestly is always a difficult situation to look within and to try and understand what it is that's holding us back from, whether it's the career moves that we need to be making, chasing our dreams, overcoming, issues in relationships. I mean, there's so many areas. People don't really spend a lot of time reflecting on, is it just a temporary lapse, or is it truly something that's paralyzed, that has them significantly stuck and keeping them from moving forward? I do a workshop, and in my workshop, we do this exercise, and I call it the porch exercise. There's 2 reasons. The first is I love referencing. I feel like when it comes to the things that paralyze us, those things that we've been unable to change in our lives, we kind of sit in our dark house and close up the curtains. We don't want anybody to see that. That's what we hide. Mm-hmm. And in order for us to be able to reflect on it and to truly begin to see it so that we can make that change, we need to step out on the front porch and shed a little bit of light on it. And so I call it the porch exercise for that reason, but also because I think it summarizes the areas that everybody really needs to start reflecting on. The P is for your pasts. If there's things in the past that are holding you back. The O is for ourselves. And that's where we really look at our life and our decisions, our jobs, the things that we're existing in every day, what's holding us back there, our relationships that might not be repaired. The C is for choices. Those are the choices that we might be making day in and day out. There's so many unhealthy ones. And then the H is for health. What are the things in our lives from a health standpoint that are paralyzing us? When we do this exercise in the workshops, it's interesting because at the beginning, when you start thinking of paralysis, most people can think of that one thing. They're like that one big thing that they know has been holding them back. But when you start to look and reflect on all those areas, you start seeing things that you would have never really put in that category. And where it really becomes eye-opening is when you quantify how long that paralysis has been in existence for you. I asked the question, how long have you been suffering from this? And, my examples are tremendous. We've had people spending 3/4 of their lives being stuck in some area. And so while, yes, this is a podcast about hope, and there is hope following, but we have to get to that point of accepting that those things exist and then choosing, I no longer want to be stuck there, and believing and accepting that there's an opportunity to overcome it.
That reflection is probably scary it's scary for most of us, and it's foreign. We don't do it well. And I love your point that, it's easy to come up with one anyway, but how, that requires a level of vulnerability and of authenticity that is scary. And I think if you reflect on that, to your point about there's hope coming, right? So, okay, yes. So someone's going to get raw. What happens? What happens with that rawness? What happens with that vulnerability?
Really what starts happening is the clarity of how that's holding you back from the big things that you want to be able to do in your life, chase in your life, the happiness that you might be seeking in your life. When those things are weighing on you, and we all have it. There's not a single person that's listening right now that doesn't have something that is a heavy burden on them. When you look at removing that heavy burden and you imagine your life without the heavy burden and the dreams and the things that you could chase as a result of it, I mean, it's stinking amazing in my opinion. And, that's where the mindset matters. We can either live in this mind of being stuck and being like, this is never going to change, or we can live in this mindset of there's opportunity for this to change and what is beyond that. One of my favorite stories, I can't even tell you how inspirational this is for me, but most of us should know. I guess it depends on the age range that's listening right now, but most people know Christopher Reeve, the actor who played Superman. back in the 80s. And for many people, they will remember that Christopher Reeves was in a very bad accident, and he actually suffered a spinal cord injury and lost all of his movement below his shoulder. So he was a quadriplegic. And his injury was so bad, like he was within a 16th of an inch of dying. It was a horrific injury. And every doctor, and I'm telling you, they went to numerous doctors, said he had no chance of ever moving again below his shoulders. And he's got a quote out there, and I have to share this with you because I just think it's so inspirational. It said, "So many of our dreams at first seem impossible, then they seem improbable. And then when we summon the will, they soon become inevitable." And this was his mindset. And as a result of that, here's this man who's not able to move. Everybody told him it was impossible, but he accepted the situation, but he didn't accept the outcome. And he was able to make snow angels in the water. He was able to push off the pool with his feet. He was able to make hand gestures. Like Christopher Reeves did move again. And I just think he's that perfect example of whatever it is that we think that's lurking in our lives that cannot change, it can change. And if they believe that summoning the will soon make that inevitable, then, nothing can hold us back from overcoming it.
Wow. Thank you. Okay. So we got 4, and I want to be mindful of time here, 4 focus areas for overcoming paralysis in our lives. Let's move to the second one, which I think you described as rehabilitate your mind. Rehabilitate your mind.
Yes.
I can kind of see where you're going already with Christopher Reeve, but unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So when paralysis happens because of the influences of the people around us and what I like to call the worldly influences. So it's influences that are the expectations that either we've had of ourselves or people have had for us. And I'm thinking specifically like in the business world and in the career world. We all kind of, you're expected to get a job right out of college and know your career when you're 18 years old.
Right.
And then you're expected to like live that career for the rest of your life and make great things happen. And we kind of set those expectations. But I'm a big believer in, we tend to live our lives a lot of times in these expectations of what people expect from us and what we expect from ourselves. And we don't pay attention to really what that inner core is that's stirring us every day. And that in itself is a paralyzing thought process. It's limiting beliefs. For me personally, I had this false vision of success for a long time. It was, I was the top performer and winning trips and, being in President's Club and climbing the corporate ladder and being selected for like the leadership programs. This was all in my brain of what success was for me. And it seriously like consumed me. I ended up taking a job that one would call like the dream job, super successful. It was a super hard sales job to get. And I traveled the world living just this, I'm telling you, like crazy, amazing experiences that we don't have time to get into today, but people used to say, you are living the dream. And the outside of me is like, absolutely I am. I'm doing everything that this vision I've created for myself is. But at the same time, I was miserable because I was living this imbalanced life. I was high on career and I was low on life. I was missing Mother's Days, birthdays, every football game, all those things that come with being a mother. And I'm not somebody who at all ever grew up wanting to be a stay-at-home mom, never crossed my mind. But I can tell you that inner side of me that wanted to be a mother came through and knew that I was making a bad mistake. I was living in misery, so to speak, to chase that corporate dream. And the finances that come with it, they get a grip on you. And so I was very much paralyzed in a professional way because I thought that was the only way I could find success. And I sacrificed my family in the meantime. Not until I was able to get to the point of rehabilitating my mind and realizing that wasn't worth it, that, my prize needed to be my children, did I end up being able to see that it was actually possible to find success in another way? And I think that everybody has those things that are like stirring in their hearts that they need to begin to rehabilitate their minds on, that's something that's holding them back. Maybe it's going out and starting your own business instead of, sitting in your cubicle pushing paper like you've been doing for 20 years. I mean, we all have something out there that we need to begin to rehabilitate our minds and start looking at our lives in a different way.
My colleague Lynn refers to, and especially in the corporate, and the higher you climb in the corporate ladder or in an organization that has good financial package or good benefits package, she refers to the golden handcuffs that people feel, and you become trapped, right? It draws you in, and that definition of that corporate success, you get confined to it. And so I love your idea of rehabilitating your mind. Is that something, Amanda, that someone can do? Like, do you do that on your own? Do you do that with help, with a coach, with a club? I mean, I don't suppose just magically one day you wake up and your mind is rehabilitated.
I say all of the above, Sinikka. And I know that everybody has kind of their ways of exploring themselves. Like for me, I'm a spiritual person. And so, going to prayer and journaling has been a big way that revelation came to me. But I also have worked with a coach in the past, and it's been amazing what's come to light during that process as well. And that kind of ties to the next step a little bit, the realizing the possibilities. It comes from the same place of doing that search where you're trying to recognize my mind needs changed. I have to change my mind so I don't stay stuck in this situation. But you also have to start beginning to look at the possibilities of what the outcome is by making that big change for you.
Right. Okay, so with Amanda Zwanziger, we're talking about 4 focus areas for overcoming paralysis in our lives. The first one is reflect on that paralysis, really come to terms with it, recognize it. The second one is rehabilitate your mind, do what it takes to change your mind, to change your perspective, to look at things differently. And now you're going into realizing the possibilities. Here's that hope coming up again.
So one of the hardest parts of overcoming paralysis is staying on course, 100%. And so you have to have that hopeful opportunity, beyond that you're buying into and that you're committing to and you're chasing. And the word realize, I think, is a powerful word because it has 2 meanings. One, it means that you're fully aware that something's fact. Right. So you're accepting the situation as it is, but it also means that you caused something to happen. Mm-hmm. And so realizing means, okay, you've accepted it, but now you've got to cause something to happen. And in this case, you got to cause the possibilities to happen. And I think I know we all have faced that situation where we think that there is no possibility to overcome it. And we've certainly stared other people in the face and said, there's no way that person is ever overcoming that issue. They're always going to be an alcoholic, or they're always going to be stuck, or they're always going to be a jerk at work. We declare they are, but that's not the case. Everybody has an opportunity to change. And I think one of the biggest inspirations for me in this entire journey is actually a Bible verse. It's Matthew 19:26. I think most people have heard part of this, which is all things are possible. But a lot of people aren't aware of the part of the verse that comes before that. And it says, humanly speaking, it is impossible. And I have come up with the term from this that impossible is impossible. So people have heard the term impossible is possible, but what that does is make impossible accepted. It recognizes it as a word.
Okay.
But that was created by humans. It was never intended to exist. So if we decide impossible is impossible and the word ceases to exist, we eliminate it altogether, then all that's left is possible. And if we look at our lives and the things that we need to change with that mindset that there is no other opportunity, then we can do amazing things. And I know for me personally, after I took this plunge to leave the dream job, I literally halved my paycheck to be able to work, in the Des Moines area so I could be near my children. I still had stirring going inside my heart. The ministry was still like lurking and chasing this dream of speaking, and all this stuff was there. But I tell you, the limiting belief or the impossibility of making a living doing such a thing, it was impossible. I had no credibility. I needed the income. I had 5 kids to take care of, a full-time job, all that stuff. But when my mindset changed and I was able to imagine the possibility or realize the possibility that I could start my own business. I could work half time. I could free up half my time to be able to chase this dream. Then the wheels started turning and I started putting things in motion to make it happen. And this reality that I had before, that I had to work for, the corporate giant in order to make the income that I was making, was wrong. I was able to start my own business, make the same amount of money and work half the time. I would have never thought that was possible in my previous brain. But when we realize that it is possible, then us humans can make great things happen.
Love it. And I love that split definition of realize the possibilities. When you realize the possibilities, then you can realize the possibilities, right? You have to acknowledge it. You have to come to terms with it with your brain and picture it and see it so that you can achieve it and see it as a reality.
Yes.
Love it. And that verse that you cited in Matthew, I think, gosh, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, but with God, all things are possible, right? But with God, everything is possible. And I love that you've reminded us of that. Humanly speaking, it's possible. So when someone says to you, that's not possible, humanly speaking, it's impossible.
Yeah, that's humanly speaking.
Love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's get on to the 4th point. In specific, we're talking about 4 focus areas for overcoming paralysis in our lives. And Amanda Zwanziger, she's talking about reflecting on paralysis, rehabilitating your mind, realizing the possibilities. And now to the one that just gives me so much joy. I can't wait to hear you describe this. Receive the gift of freedom.
Yes.
What is that?
So I kind of shared previously that, what happens, the outcome of paralysis is typically, it means that it's holding us back. It doesn't just cause misery and burden in our lives. It's holding ourselves back from something amazing and from a future that is really what's intended for us. And so at the end of this, when we overcome our paralysis and we're able to kind of release these burdens, then we're freed up to be able to chase the dreams, to spend the time and the energy in the areas that we need to. And that's a gift. It is a huge gift that we're able to accomplish things and find victory. And it's not just a gift in the fact that we can chase the dreams, but when you overcome something that has paralyzed you for years and years, 50% of your life, that is a gift. Like that is a gift of strength and endurance and, hard work, and just something that you can take for the rest of your life and apply it to the next thing that's trying to weigh you down. And if you don't, give up on that gift or forget that gift, but you received that as a gift, you recognize that freedom, then it's going to take you even further the next time that you're battling something that's a heavy burden that's holding you back.
Absolutely. Well, and thinking about when we receive gifts, what is our natural response, right? Our natural response is gratitude. And the mindset of gratitude is one of the ones that is the most enlightening. It's one of the ones that allows our brains the freedom to think biggest and be the most able to help others and to think more wisely, is when we're operating from a frame of gratitude. So if we receive this gift and position ourselves in being grateful for having overcome that, right? Grateful for that opportunity to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that the listeners, that I'm really excited about the freedom that they have in front of them, because there is some amazing things that are going to happen because people are going to choose to let those burdens lie, and they're going to chase, that dream. They're going to chase that career, whatever it might be. And amazing things are going to happen. And if they tell their story about how they overcome it, it goes even further. To be able to go and make a difference in somebody else's life because of what they were able to overcome can give gifts beyond what we can probably measure.
Absolutely. Well, think of how many times has Christopher Reeve's story been told, and has it been used to inspire people and move forward? And I'm sure that in his moment, he knew that he was doing something to help himself. But I wonder I wonder if he had any idea how many people beyond him would continue to be influenced by his willingness to overcome.
Well, and I have to share this personally, and I hadn't thought to share it today, but I speak mainly to women, my ministry, and I spoke at a women's event, and I was preparing for it. And the previous event I had done, there was a woman who walked away from an abusive relationship she'd been in for 25 years. There was another woman who was able to start dealing with some major tragic death in her life. There were just really amazing success stories of women overcoming their paralysis. And I was getting ready to leave to walk out the door to go and present. And I looked at my husband and I thought, look at what your journey of overcoming paralysis, look at the lives that it's changing. And so everybody's story can make waves in people's lives, and you don't even know it. I know that that's going to happen as a result of some of the people listening right now. So
absolutely. Oh, Amanda, thank you so much. What a joy to hear from you and hear a little bit more about your message. So your ministry, you talked about the fact that you speak at women's conferences and that sort of thing. And then you also have a business. If someone wanted to reach out to you, Amanda, should they come through us and we can connect with you, or is there a place that you want to refer them?
Absolutely. They can connect through you, or I also have a website, amandamotivates.com, that they can connect with me. Either way works.
Okay, wonderful. So as we begin to wrap up this time, one of the questions that we always like to ask because this is the Even Better podcast, right? We try and offer words to help others make their days, make their work day, make their work life and their day-to-day life even better. Because if you can make your work day better, you can bring home better attitudes and better perspectives and better conversations to your family and more free time to contribute and co-create greatness in your community. So how about you, Amanda? What's making you even better right now?
So I am a self-admitted squirrel chaser. I am a big dreamer and an idea chaser. And so I might be rocking and rolling in the middle of creating something great. And then another idea comes along and I go and I chase it. And what I've ended up with are a whole lot of wonderful ideas that are going nowhere. And so this has been a battle for a long time. And for the past couple months, I actually do a prayer meditation where I just really try to tune in. I think part of the challenge is when you're your own business owner, you don't have a boss. And I'm a person who maybe kind of needs a boss. And so I've been in my prayer meditation, I've been asking God, give me my tasks for today so that I can just stay focused on getting something accomplished. And it's been amazing because while his tasks are not as aggressive as the ones that I would like to take on myself, they're exactly what I need to be doing. And I am making far more progress than I was as Amanda, the squirrel chaser boss. So that is absolutely, it's been a life-changing process to kind of go and ask for direction. And really it's just settling your mind and just really tuning in and knowing where it is that your heart needs to lead you that day.
Thank you, Amanda. Well, for those who have joined us and did not know Amanda yet, you've had this wonderful treat, this opportunity to get to know Amanda Zwanziger. She was sharing with us 4 focus areas for overcoming paralysis in our lives. And I know there are several pieces of what you talked about today that challenged me in a way that we don't have time to talk about here, but I would love to visit further and really dive deeper into some of those topics. And so thank you, Amanda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me very much.
It has been such a joy. And to those of you who are listening, thank you so much for tuning in to the Even Better podcast, and we wish you a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.